Hey, thanks everybody. I am going to mute this because I'm going to be mentioning her name in a little bit. So I'm going to talk about bots. There are a couple of different types of bots. Sinet talked a little bit on some definitions earlier. I'm breaking mine down into two different types. The first type are helper bots. We have a bunch of these. Everything from our ad deployments. Our brands can go and say, we need a new ad placement here with this configuration on this site for these keywords, things like that. And all of that deployment is handled through a conversation in Slack. We have things on DevOps around deployment, a bunch of internal stuff that fall into the realm of helper bots. But I want to talk about one that is public. Condé Nast haikus. This is on Twitter. You can go follow it right now. There are a couple of bots here that are working in concert. There's one bot that scans all the content that goes through Copilot, which is our internal content platform, and looks for haikus. This is an example of a really hard problem that's easy for a computer to tackle. I wouldn't want to be the person tasked with going through all of our stories looking for the 575 pattern, but a computer is really good at that. When it finds one of these haikus, it posts that to internal Slack channel. Anybody in the company can join that, and that's where the second bot comes in. We have a bot inside that channel that is scanning upvotes. So if there's a haiku that somebody has flagged and said, oh, this is a good one, and enough people do that, it'll post it to this Twitter account. That's an example of what seems like a relatively easy problem that's hard for a computer to do. It's relatively easy for us to look at a haiku and say, oh, this is really funny, or this is really relevant, or that's an interesting way to phrase this. It's harder for a computer to do that and do that successfully. So here we're melding humans and computers into these multiple bots to give you Condé Nast haikus on Twitter. There's the other class of bots, which is what we've been talking about mostly today, and that is the conversational bot. So a bot that you interact with through either Facebook Messenger or iMessages or Alexa. So one, again, this is something that's public that y'all can go use right now if you want. If you go to Teen Vogue on Facebook and tap message, you can find out what type of makeup you should be wearing or what your supermodel twin is. Supermodel style twin, I think is what it is. But this is just, it's a quiz interface that goes back and forth. You pick the quiz that you want. And then it walks you through this predetermined workflow. At the end of it, we calculate it up and give you the result of it. This is something the editorial team can do now that everything is in place. They can add new quizzes. And it's something we're looking to turn into a product. So I could see where a makeup brand could come to us and say, hey, we want to launch this new brand, and we want people to be able to get matched with the product in this new line that works for them. Here, we'll do that. Another one that we've got is, this one is still in development and should be out here in the next 6 weeks or so. We're adding an Alexa skill from Epicurious. The demo that we have right now, you ask Alexa to ask Epicurious, how do I cook a steak? Well, there are a lot of variables that go into cooking a steak. We need to know what type it is to figure out whether or not we're going to tell you to cook it by time or to cook it by weight. We got to figure out how long or how well you want it cooked, and then we can get you kind of a rough estimation of where you need to be. For us, this makes total sense because the majority of Alexa echoes are sitting in kitchens. So providing something of the data that Epicurious has around how to cook things via Alexa was just a no-brainer. But again, it's a decision tree that we're kind of walking you through. It's something that you could have a conversation with somebody about. But we're turning it into a bot. So the common themes that we have here, particularly among these last two conversational bots, they could have both been walls of text. The quiz style thing's a little bit harder, but BuzzFeed has done a pretty good job of creating the standard web page quiz format. It doesn't have to be conversational and you answer one question before you see the next one. We could have gone that route. For our Alexa skill, it's filling in something that's a pretty well-established pattern, a cookbook or a recipe. That already exists, and you can go in and find all the different pieces that you need to figure out how to cook the filet mignon properly. So it could have just been a wall of text. I do want to say that I'm not 100% sure that these are exactly the right way to go about doing this. Bots, particularly conversational bots, we're still in an era of experimentation, trying to figure out what is a good fit, what isn't a good fit. Depending on what we find out from the engagement with our users, we may find out that quizzes do work better on a web page where you can scan the whole thing before you commit to doing it. We may find out that there's a really good reason that recipe books and cookbooks are still out there. That might be the best format. But we're trying to experiment with taking the information we have right now and taking it from the standard wall of text or standard page that presents the information and turn it into something that has a conversational workflow. The key thing here is to reframe how you think about the content you have. Epicurious is a great example of this as a publication that produces a magazine about cooking. It produces, it helps you cook various things, gives you recipes, all that good stuff. You think of the content as, oh, it's this publication. Well, they have all of this knowledge that we can take and turn into something that we could conversationalize if we reframe how we look at it. So you might be wondering what the deal is with all of these photos. This year, I've made it the furthest I've ever made it in Project 365, which is take a photo every day, post it somewhere. I'm posting them to Instagram. I've done it to Flickr before. I've done it to Facebook before. But this year, I'm doing it. I'm also trying to expand my horizons a little bit out of photography. I've got to the point where I can take okay photos. I always feel like I'm a good photographer until I look at the people that work at Condé Nast and the photography that they're able to produce. So when I look at the pros, it's like, oh, well, I can take a good snapshot, but that's about it. But in expanding from photography, I've also tried to reach into videography. And in doing that, this is going to sound really, really stupid, but I figured out that photography and videography are not the same thing. Just because you're good at taking a still photo doesn't mean that you can take a good video. When I take a photo, I'm thinking about, okay, how am I going to frame this room? What do I want the focus to be? Okay, snap, done. I have that moment in time that I've captured. When I'm thinking about videography, I have to think about the movement through that. What's the tension going to be? Where's the focus going to be? Where's it going to go from and to? There's a whole bunch of other variables that you have to think about. And then you have to start thinking about, well, how am I going to piece this together into the story that I'm going to tell? If you're trying to tell a story with photography through multiple photos, it's pieced together those photos. With video, you have to think about how you want to piece it together from shot to shot. What do I need to support this shot that I'm doing here as part of an interview versus this shot here that's B-roll? What is this B-roll supporting? What should be playing over top of it? There's all these other variables that go into it. Similar skills, but you have to really change the way you think about it. Likewise, when you're thinking about narrative stories or blocks of text, you have to think about it differently if you're going to do it conversationally. Taking one of the topics, or the broader topic today is conversational journalism. We're not going to be able to take the journalism that we have, that we produce now, as a story, as a discrete thing, and turn that into a conversational bot and just give you a sentence or a paragraph at a time. We're going to have to rethink how we do that. Some of the experiments we've been doing at Condé Nast are moving us in that direction, rethinking how we want to present different pieces of content in different ways that might work. And I'm really excited about the stuff that we have coming out this year and to see what everybody else does. So thanks.